Today I'm going to play through the demo for AI Limit, and I'll give some of my first impressions of the game, so let's get going. AI Limit is an anime-inspired Souls-like game that released on March 27th, 2025, developed by Chinese studio Sense Games. It looks to capture both anime fans and Souls fans alike. We had a similar attempt back in 2019 with Code Vein, which seemed to be met with mixed reviews. I've never played Code Vein, but something about the art design and setting of AI Limit immediately set off a spark in my brain, so I decided to download the demo and check it out myself. As with most Souls-inspired games, AI Limit starts with us awakening in some random place, and we need to explore a little bit to figure out what the game wants us to do next. The tried and true method of building a mysterious world that the Souls series is best known for. I wouldn't expect too much from this demo in the ways of story, but we're going to have a very large sample size from combat and mechanics. If you take your time and are decently good at these style of games, you'll get about an hour or so of gameplay in this demo. With that being said, let's move into story. The demo doesn't give us much when it comes to story, other than we wake up in a massive puddle of mud? Or is it something else? Considering this is the sewers that we're moving around in, could be something else. Our main character is a blader with immortality by the name of Orisa, which we can't customize besides weapons and armor, so that's a bit disappointing. But I'll go into more detail about that later. We find out through the only interaction we get with anyone in this game is that civilization is on the verge of extinction and people are following the Legend of Elysium, which must not be working because there's only one city left. Havenswell is the only city left, which is apparently right above where we are, so we need to navigate our way through this area to find a way out. That's about all the details we get in the demo, besides small conversations with some of the people that are somehow still alive down here in the sewers. Kinda like this old woman that yelled at me, and then when I came back later on, she was dead. Serves her right for being mean when I didn't even do anything. The story sounds pretty interesting, and the need to collect mud instead of souls is different enough, but I have a feeling this might be the weakest portion of this game when it's all said and done. Next, I want to talk about the graphics. AI Limit is very anime inspired, so the art direction for this game fits the theme. We have bold outlines on our characters, and borderline feels like a comic. The sewer level given to us in the demo is very dark, so we don't get to see how they'll use this design when it comes to color, but later on when we finish the demo, we emerge from the sewers, and that looks pretty good. I actually really like the design that this game presents, but I was a bit disappointed that we couldn't design our own character, which means I can't run around the world with my green-skinned man with a massive nose and no chin, like I do in Dark Souls. This wouldn't be a problem if the main character really mattered, but from what I can tell, she feels a bit generic. I know it's only the demo, so it's possible that the story opens up more, and we get to know more about our character specifically, but I would rather have a character creation menu. Which is weird because I don't typically want that. I think the game has a great design though, so I don't hate the way it looks, I actually really like it. Next I want to take a look at some of the gameplay and combat. I don't want to start this off with comparing this to Dark Souls, but the combat and gameplay cycle in this game couldn't be any closer to Dark Souls. We get little lamps as we progress through each area, and if we die in combat we lose a portion of our mud. The big difference here is that we don't have to go back and retrieve our mud like you would do in a Dark Souls game with their souls. When controlling our character, we have very standard Souls-like controls. We have a light and heavy attack that we can combine into combos depending on the enemy. Very quickly, we're able to pick what class we want to start with. We can use a standard sword, dual blades, or a heavy spear-like weapon. Each one of these have their own pros and cons. The standard blade is pretty balanced, so you'll be decent in everything, but not excel in anything. The dual blades give us more speed with less damage, and the spear gives us more damage in range with slower attack speed. The only real choice when it comes to this is what you just feel most comfortable with. I generally like to use strength builds in these types of games, but I went with standard sword to start, and then switched to dual blades a bit later in the demo. Having the extra speed just feels a bit better in this game compared to some of the Souls games. Outside of those classes, we can block with a shield, which stores up energy over time, and as long as we don't get hit while blocking, we can store up a bunch of energy and release it in one extremely powerful attack. Honestly, this feels a bit broken if you can figure out the right way to use it. We have the well-known combat roll in this game, but it's more like a dash than it is a roll. It definitely helps making it easier to fight the enemies. We can parry like in most Souls games, which require figuring out the timing for each of the attacks being thrown at us. The only other thing to mention in this game is that we have this meter under our character. It fills up when being attacked, when we block, or when we hit an enemy with a standard attack. This meter is required for us to use skills like a laser gun that we picked up in the sewers, and even to parry attacks. If this meter gets to 0 or below, we take more damage, move slower, and can't really do much of anything to protect ourselves. So this adds a much needed balance to what would be an extremely overpowered system. But besides the shield storing up power, the combat feels mostly balanced. The level design in this demo feels pretty good. There are different paths that we can take depending on how skillful or how brave you want to be. Even a couple hidden sections that you might not actually find unless you were searching for them. I'm a bit of a scavenger in video games, so I had no real issue finding them. The end of the demo gives us a fight with a boss. I won't give too much away about it in case you wanted to play through this yourself, but he was a bit tough for me at first. I just felt like my attacks were too slow when he got into his second phase, so I ended up switching to the dual blades, which do less damage, but ultimately I was able to swing them faster, and I had 2 of them, so it really helped. And on my next attempt, I was able to take the boss down and complete the demo. The developer really gives you a lot to play around with and gives a nice taste for everything the game has to offer in combat. They throw normal weak enemies at us, some more challenging ones in random areas throughout the sewers, and then a pretty challenging boss at the end of the demo. And if you feel like it, if you go back to the menu, there's an extra boss that you can take on, which is one that you would fight later in the game. I didn't do this one though, so you'll have to let me know if you complete it. I feel like I've compared this to Dark Souls a lot, but it does enough with the combat that makes it feel new and refreshing, so in my opinion, I was actually very impressed by what I got to play. In conclusion, after completing a pretty expansive demo, I actually really enjoyed what I played. I feel like the enemy variation could have been a bit better, but since it was the first level of the game, it's probably attempting to ease the player into it. This is both a good and a bad thing, because while we're learning each new mechanic that's being thrown at us, we actually have a shot to survive. I've mentioned this before, but I think this is a perfect demo. It gives us access to a full level, some story elements, a boss fight, and even an extra boss fight that's way more challenging from the main menu. So it really allows the player to get a feel for how the game's going to play in the future, and a teaser for what the story might be. I really feel like more developers should be doing this style of demo. With all that being said, I don't think I'll pick this one up at full price, but it's something that I'll eventually get and play through. I don't doubt that at all. But I'd love to hear what you think about this game. So if you've had a chance to play it, let me know down in the comments what you think. If you like JRPG content, consider subscribing to the channel, like this video, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.